What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Pete Logical. Today, I'm bringing you episode 2 of my Captain America movie review series. How did this get started? Well, 2 weekends ago, I posted a poll on my Facebook page, and I let you guys vote in the comments of my community post on here. I basically added all the votes up, and you guys almost unanimously voted for this one. So, last week I posted the First Avenger. Go check that out after this one. And I was a huge fan of that movie. Minus a few things that I had to point out about it. This week, we got possibly the best MCU movie, or one of them, and probably one of the best non-Avengers MCU films, and that is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now, of the OG Avengers, the Captain America movies for me are the most consistent. There isn't a bad MCU Captain America movie yet, and up to this point, all three of them have been really good. This one, however, well, we're gonna get into that in my review section of this. But before I get started, if you want to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more, I post tons of movie related stuff, whether that's news, rumors, movie reviews like this one, rankings, anything like that. So I also do the same for music as well. So if that sort of thing sounds cool, feel free to subscribe for more. Over the next year or so, I'm going to be reviewing all the MCU movies, but because of the release of Captain America: Brave New World, that's the reason why we're starting with the Captain America movies. And with that out of the way, let's dive into the cast, and we'll get to my review. So the cast we got Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff or Black Widow, Sebastian Stan is the Winter Soldier or Bucky Barnes, Anthony Mackie is Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, Kobe Smulders is Maria Hill, Frank Grillo is Brock Rumlow, Emily Van Camp is Sharon Carter, Haley Atwell portrays a young Peggy Carter in a film bit, and also the older version of Peggy. She plays Peggy Carter. More on her in my review section. Toby Jones is Arnim Zola again. Jenny Agutter is Holly. Robert Redford plays Alexander Pierce, and Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury. Additional cameos are Maximiliano Hernandez as Jasper Sitwell, Gary Shandling as Senator Stern, George St. Pierre as George Batroc, Colin Mulkey as Jack Rollins. So, in addition to Jenny Agutter, Chin Han, Alan Dale, and Bernard White make up the World Security Council. Danny Putty is a SHIELD technician. D.C. Pearson is an Apple Store employee. Gary Sinise is the narrator of the Captain America theme exhibit at the Smithsonian. Stan Lee cameos as a security guard. Ed Brubaker, who is the Winter Soldier creator, is cameos as a scientist working on the Winter Soldier. Co-director Joe Russo cameos as a doctor, and writers of the film, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, cameo as S.H.I.E.L.D. interrogators. Of course, got the mid-credit scene where it leads into Infinity War, and in that mid-credit scene is Thomas Kretschmann as Baron von Strucker, Henry Goodman as Dr. List, Aaron Taylor Johnson is Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver, and Elizabeth Olsen cameos in the post-credit scene as Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch. Alright, so that's all of them. I'm just going to get straight into this. Pretty much every person in here did a very, very good job in their role. I'm just going to say that out loud, but if I had to give the nods to... If I had to give some of the standouts to people, I will give it to Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Emily Van Camp, and Samuel L. Jackson. In my opinion, those guys absolutely destroyed their roles. But in all honesty, this thing, it probably is like one of the best movies of all time. Not just MCU movie. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. So anybody could be up for the standout in this, but in my opinion, those are the standouts. So, I do these reviews in a positive, mixed, negative style format, where the positives are the stuff I liked, the mixed are the stuff I'm indifferent on, or a fun fact, or a post-credit scene something, or things that I think are neither good or bad, and I just have to point it out. And then a negative is something I didn't like about the film. And I'm going to give you a spoiler right now, even though this movie is 11 years old, so the spoiler is kind of redundant. Since I like this movie so much, there is absolutely none in the negatives. I'm just going to throw that out there as where it relates to my scores at the end. So, with that out of the way, let's dive into the positives. So, you know how I said that I was a very big fan of the first Captain America movie? That still holds true to today. I don't think there is a bad Captain America movie yet. I haven't seen the new one yet, obviously, because that comes out in a couple weeks, so we'll revisit that point then. If that movie is a disappointment, I will let you guys know. But as of right now, in my opinion, there hasn't been a bad Captain America movie. However, I gotta be real. Everything that was good about the first Captain America movie, and everything that was bad about the first Captain America movie just fails in comparison to everything that is done extremely well in the Winter Soldier. It has basically everything you can ask for from an MCU film. It has great character development, great... like, my biggest issue with the First Avenger was the script, right? Where I thought that the First Avenger, um, that I thought the First Avenger script hated Steve Rogers as the main lead of the character and as the guy that got the ability for Captain America. In this film, and it could be the character arc he's on, but in this film it's done so much better. He's clearly the one that you want to root for in this. And it almost feels like you're watching a Christopher Nolan Batman movie at times. The action is just that extreme, and the plot points are so good. Pretty much everything I liked about the first movie, it fails in comparison. This is a Captain America movie, a government thriller, and an espionage film, and an action blockbuster, all tied into one. And it's all done extremely well here, where in the beginning, Captain America is working for S.H.I.E.L.D., some stuff goes down in the middle where something happens to Nick Fury, and even though I don't know why I'm avoiding spoilers here, but like Nick Fury supposedly dies, and basically from all of that, it's done so well, and from Steve Rogers' point of view, by the end of this, he doesn't feel he can completely trust S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. So, because of what happened with his friend. And I guess that brings me to my next thing. It's Steve Rogers. As I said, I don't think the writers of Captain America, the First Avenger, really liked Steve Rogers. But what they did with him in this film, I thought worked infinitely well, just like it did in the comics, where basically after the ice crash, Steve Rogers wakes up in a different time period. Most of his comrades are dead. Most of the people he thought were his best friends are dead. And so the world completely changed over the 70-ish gap that he missed. And throughout all of that, Steve Rogers still never failed to be who he is. And that is someone who would go into battle for the people he cares about, and would jump on a grenade if it would save a person's life. There's a lot of things that could change somebody, and rightfully so, it could change them. But Steve took the bigger man approach and didn't allow that to change him at all. And for that, I completely respect the character. Then you have to talk about the moment between Steve Rogers and Peggy at the beginning. And watching it again, for context, I watched this film twice, where I first watched it just casually, and then I watched it a second time just to make sure I could find stuff to talk about in this. And this moment just was so emotional from both times I watched it. Basically from the opening part where she was where the younger version of him is on TV, and then when the camera like pans into the real life, she's in her 90s in a home, and I believe she's talking to Bucky, or she thinks she's talking to Bucky, or someone that was around back then. But then, like, towards the end of that scene, she realizes it's not that person and it's actually her husband that she's talking to. That moment just was so emotional for me, and it was done incredibly well. Did the CGI look? I guess you can. I guess you can say that the CGI in that point was like was whatever, but like Steve Rogers, if he didn't freeze in ice, would have been that age. So, and that's why he appears as an old man in Endgame at the end, because like, yeah, he would. That's the reality. Like, you almost forget how much older Steve is than everybody else. Even though you know he's in his 90s. Yeah, I just thought that moment was done so well. And of course, got to talk about Falcon next. Falcon is pretty much like done so badass in this. It's a talk about a character debut. Like, to have your first shots be in this movie, it's incredible. And to play a significant role in it, like, especially in the third act, like, you're doing all these cool things with his wings, and that's going to be a theme going forward into Civil War, because we get more Falcon stuff in that movie. And it's going to be a theme in the next Captain America movie, where he's straight up Captain America now. So, yeah, I'm just such a huge fan of Sam Wilson's character. And, yeah, I have to shout him out because this character was done so well. And, yeah, I honestly, like, all of them were good, but let's talk about Black Widow right now. Black Widow, see, it's funny right now because what do we all remember about this movie? Well, we remember the stuff with Nick Fury. We remember this being the best Captain America movie by far. We remember the Winter Soldier stuff and Steve Rogers finding out about Bucky, and he actually survived the train incident. But I don't know if it's me or this is a common thing, but I actually think Black Widow had one of her best, if not her best, performance in this, where she straight up went crazy from the in every major action scene she's in, she completely steals the entire complexion of the show. Because when I was watching her, I was like, why don't I remember this part? And that happened the first time, but for me, but like, yeah, she was straight up badass in this movie, and it's another like check on that list of things you want in a Marvel film. It's just incredible. And then obviously Nick Fury is next. And so Nick Fury suspects early on that someone has infiltrated SHIELD, and so he goes over to Steve Rogers' apartment, and even though Steve had no idea he was there, it led to a very funny bit um where they were having a conversation, but on Nick's phone, the real things were taking place, and it's like, oh, something's about to go down right here. And well, they try to assassinate Nick Fury at this point, and we all assume he's dead, but later on in the film, when you realize he isn't dead for some reason, he says how he used something that will make the Hulk less stressed, and it just, I don't know, it might be so dumb, but like, it just made me feel like, yeah, that makes sense as to why we all thought you were dead. And yeah, I just think Nick Fury was done probably. He was given a great character arc in this, and he was just done so well. Moving on to Bucky. So I remember the first time I watched this film when it was in the theater, I believe. And the Winter Soldier, when he appeared, he looked familiar to me at the beginning, but it wasn't until he took part of his shades off that I was like, oh, that's Bucky right now. And so it was always funny to me when in the original where Bucky, you can clearly tell it's him, but Steve Rogers had to wait until the entire thing came off. And yeah, it was one of those reveals where at the start it was just so shocking. And but it was also done so well because like from that point on, he would have like the most badass like moments in this that Bucky has ever had. I don't know if anything I'm saying here makes sense, but like all the action sequences in this film have weight and an emotional connection with the audience, where something else happens in everything. It's not your typical CGI fest where it's just, stuff is just happening and the heroes have to save someone that's behind an area that's under lock and key. No, because of what happens with our characters in this, you feel the emotion here. You want these people to pay. And it's just done so well. This is one of the best Marvel movies ever. And the last thing I'll talk about is the score. Like, this score from Henry Jackman just gives me goosebumps. It just carries the film in such a deeper level. All right. So, and of course, the Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes fight at the middle that they bring up, it was done so well that it paid off and was satisfying to see when we all wanted Bucky to go off the helicarrier, but when Steve says he's gonna be with Bucky till the end, and then Bucky pulls him from the water and puts him on the shore, then walks away. That was done so well, and it was just a sentiment to how great this film really is. All right, now let's move on to the mixed. And the writer of the Civil War comics was actually in this. So, hold on. let's see. So Captain America, the Winter. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So I want to get the exact quote. All right. So the writer of the Civil War comics appears as a scientist working on Bucky in this, and he's famously known for being one of Stan Lee's critics. Before working on this film, he actually wrote and brought Bucky back, and it was one of the best character arcs that we've seen in Marvel in the comics at the time. Well, he said that he always was angry as a kid when he found out that Bucky dying was some huge retcon they did because Stan Lee didn't want to have sidekicks. So part of me was always like, if I ever get to write Captain America, I'm bringing Bucky back. And so that's what he said, and I am happy they did that because we would never have gotten this incredible movie, even though this movie isn't like one-to-one to the comic. It's completely different, but it still works on such a level that it's been given like the best MCU thing from the fans ever since it came out. And then of course Stan Lee. I gotta shout out the Stan Lee cameos every time because Stan Lee is a legend and he is greatly missed from all of us. Alright, now let's talk about my two things from the movie that I don't think these are bad, and by any stretch of the imagination, I don't think they're bad at all, and they don't hinder my score here at all. But they're just moments, they're more nitpicks, and where there is something to talk about, I don't know if that made sense at all, but anyways, Arnim Zola's when he turns into the computer, both times I watched this, and both times I'm like, that was interesting. I don't hate that his mind was saved, but I'm not sure how that works if his body is dead. That they implied that he died before they took his brain out of his body. And it's like, I'm not, like, I don't hate that character arc. It's okay, but it just felt weird because I don't know how that would work. And I know this is fictional, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but it was just one that made me go, huh. And then this next one, I just think that if I did this movie, I would have Bucky be the main villain of the film, not have the main villain that hindered Nick Fury be Alexander Pierce, because I gotta be real, Alexander Pierce was kind of lame for me. So I would just have Bucky in that spot, and you could write in that Arnim Zola made Bucky an assassin for S.H.I.E.L.D., and I think it would have worked better. But aside from those two things where I would just put Bucky as the main villain. I mean, he kind of was, but he wasn't at the same time. Just because he's such a cool character, man. He's when he was an anti-hero, he was really, really good at it, and Sebastian Stan was just incredible in this movie. I don't know why he didn't get anything for it, because it's one of those iconic roles. So overall, that's my review of this movie. Um, Overall, I think this is not only one of the best non-Avengers MCU films, I think this is one of the best movies in general. It has on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 90% from critics and a 92 from the audience. Well, I am gonna go with a 5 out of 5 for the Winter Soldier. Obviously, you guys knew that when you clicked on here, and I'm going to give this a 94% out of 100 because I think this was just the such a well done movie from every single perspective. Even the ones that I have in the mix, I don't hate at all. I want to point that out. But yeah, I just think this is one of the best movies ever, and it definitely deserves my my good review on it. So that's all I got for you guys. So be sure to like the video if you liked my thoughts. If you and subscribe if you want to see more from me. All right. I love you guys and see ya.